It is with satisfaction that I come here today to have a dialogue on the contribution of international cooperation to the sustainable development of our countries, an exercise that reinforced the tradition of understanding and proximity between Brazil and the African continent. It is along this path that institutions such as IBRAF come to consolidate the epistemic networks that work on the theme of international cooperation through an exercise like this, which foster reflections on the relevance of this powerful development instrument, which is international cooperation. I will structure my presentation in two parts. First, I will present the Brazilian Cooperation Agency of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil very briefly, and its coordinator role in the national Brazilian system of international cooperation. Then I will offer you some ideas on cooperation actions between Brazil and the African continent. Let me begin by saying that the Brazilian Cooperation Agency, ABC, was created in 1987 to plan, coordinate, negotiate, approve, implement, follows up and evaluate international technical cooperation initiatives of Brazil, received from abroad and provided to other countries. Moreover, since 2017, ABC is also responsible for Brazilian humanitarian cooperation. Our agency has 7 general coordinations: technical cooperation with Africa, Asia, and Oceania, which deals with the English-speaking and French-speaking Africa, Asia, Middle East, and Oceania, and with Portuguese-speaking African countries and East Timor. And this is coordinated in the first block of countries I mentioned by Mr. Nelson Caixeta, who presented himself at this very moment. And the second block, who say Portuguese-speaking African countries and East Timor, is coordinated by Mr. Paulo Lima, which is not with us today, unfortunately. Technical cooperation, second general coordination is technical cooperation and partnerships with developed countries. The third, technical cooperation with Latin America, the Caribbean, and Europe. The fourth, multilateral technical cooperation, responsible for the multilateral technical cooperation received from international organizations, and for the work with the Community of Portuguese-Speaking Countries, CPLP, and for the trilateral South-South cooperation with international organizations. The other general coordination is for humanitarian cooperation. Another one is in charge of planning and social communication. And the last one is in charge of administration and budget. The cooperation received from abroad has 2 modalities: multilateral cooperation and bilateral cooperation. The first, multilateral cooperation, is conducted with international organizations, while the second, bilateral cooperation, is conducted with developed countries. I'm talking about received cooperation, please take it. Worthy to mention that this type of cooperation aims to contribute to the social and economic development of Brazil through the capacity building of national institutions at the 3 levels of government: the federal government, state governments, and at the municipalities level. It focuses mainly on sharing knowledge, not yet mastered by Brazil, on a non-commercial and transitional basis. The assimilation of practices, techniques, and experiences contributes to the national development of Brazil and is materialized through seminars, meetings, conferences, short missions, and projects of technical cooperation. Our main partners are UNDP, UNESCO, UNICEF, IDB, and FAO on this chapter. The bilateral cooperation with developed countries is carried out through the establishment of partnerships with those countries. The sharing of techniques and acquisition of new knowledge has contributed significantly to the progress of Brazil and continues to do so. ABC keeps receiving demands from Brazilian institutions wishing to enhance their knowledge in specific sectors. Such requests are examined and passed on to official cooperation agencies in developed countries. The main developed countries with which ABC has cooperated since its foundation are Germany, Canada, Spain, the United States, France, Italy, Japan, and the United Kingdom. Let me draw your attention to the fact that the Brazilian cooperation abroad is carried out at government level and exclusively in response to demands received officially through the Brazilian embassies or foreign embassies in Brasilia. Brazil does not propose any cooperation on its own initiative. Upon receiving a request, ABC consults the Brazilian institutions of the public and private sector to confirm their availability and interest in sharing their technical knowledge with the requesting country. Once it is assured that the institutions are willing to enter in a cooperation initiative, steps are taken for the project design, always in cooperation with the requesting country. I have to stress that Brazil is mainly committed to sharing best practices and successful experiences to be adapted by the partner country so as to build its own policies and strengthen its own institutional competence. There is no direct transfer of financial resources to the partner country, and there is no need to invest large financial resources to achieve excellent results for all parties involved. When adapting the knowledge transferred to its reality, the partner country assures at the same time the future sustainability of its own actions. ABC works today in partnership with 116 national institutions of excellence from both the public and private sectors in Brazil. ABC has also established strategic alliances with 11 developed countries, in addition to partnerships with 45 international organizations and more than 100 developing countries. ABC has to its record around 8,000 cooperation projects in 108 countries of Latin America, Asia, Africa, Europe, and Oceania over the last 3 decades. Major projects are implemented in sectors like public administration, agriculture, farming, family farming especially, science and technology, culture, defense, social development, education and school feeding, energy, industry and trade, justice, environment, health, public safety and security, urban development, labor, and decent employment or decent labor. In 2017, ABC became the institution responsible for coordinating international humanitarian cooperation in Brazil. Donations of food, medicines, and other essential items make up the humanitarian aid of Brazil to assist countries and populations in environment and natural disasters and their social aftermath, states of public calamity, armed conflicts, or any other emergency situation, be it the act of nature or man-made. Let me give you some examples of Brazil's international humanitarian cooperation operations in Africa in the last 2 years. First of all, donation of medicines from the Ministry of Health of Brazil on a humanitarian basis and without compromising the national supply in the country in the equivalent amount of little less than 450,000 North American dollars. 2, Zimbabwe, anthelmintic and antiparasitic drugs in 2019. Democratic Republic of Congo, ongoing now, 3.5 million doses of yellow fever vaccine and 3.5 million doses of diluent to be employed in a mass preventive vaccination campaign, which is in deployment, in development now in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Guinea-Bissau antiretroviral drugs in 2019 requested by the Guinean Ministry of Public Health, Family and Social Cohesion. Then we have another block, donations on a humanitarian basis with support from the World Food Program, totaling the amount of 200,000 North American dollars. 2, Algeria, 2019, high protein value products to meet the food and nutritional needs of a population settled in refugee camps. Namibia, 2019, procurement and distribution of vitamin and mineral supplement for children aged 6 to 59 months to mitigate the effects of the prolonged drought in that country. And Zimbabwe 2019, assistance to victims of Cyclone Idai, which hit the eastern region of that country. Third block, donations in 2020 to support national programs to address COVID-19 for a total amount equivalent to about $900,000. Algeria, Epidemic Response Action coordinated by World Food Program, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and United Nations Children's Fund to curb the advance of COVID-19 refugee camps in that area. Congo, support for the consolidation of the National Response Plan to COVID-19. Ghana, assistance in the procurement of mechanical respirators or ventilators. Mali, procurement of food to support refugees settled in the Senou camp in Bamako, whose food security has been greatly aggravated by the COVID-19 emergency. Mozambique, support for the purchase of medicines, medical hospital equipment, and supplies used in the fight against the pandemic. Kenya, support for the acquisition of medical hospital equipment and supplies. Rwanda, support for the acquisition of protective clothing for health sector personnel. St. Thomas and Prince, support for the purchase of medicines and medical hospital inputs as part of the Santomian National Contingency Plan against the pandemic. Sierra Leone, support for the purchase of individual protection equipment against the new coronavirus, surgical masks produced by local cooperatives and so on, and sanitation material. Somalia, support for the purchase of sanitary equipment and disinfectant. And African Union, support for the purchase of extraction kits and PCR test kits, which have been allocated to Sudan by decision of the Union itself. And 4, special operations in 2019 and 2020, under the coordination of ABC, the Brazilian government carried out the following major humanitarian actions in favor of Mozambique on the occasion of the devastating passages of cyclones Idai and Kenneth, March and April 2019. First, production of search and rescue maps of 21 areas affected by the cyclones through access to images from the Earth Observation Satellite Network of the International Charter Humanitarian Initiatives, Space and Major Disasters, and donation of 100,000 euros to support the reconstruction work in Mozambique through the special fund of the Community of Portuguese-Speaking Countries, CPLP. C, deployment in the city of Beira of a Brazilian humanitarian team with 20 military firefighters from the National Public Security Force and another 20 individuals from the Military Firefighters Corps of the state of Minas Gerais, with vehicles, equipment, and material transported in 2 aircraft Hercules C-130 of the Brazilian Air Force. The donation of 6 kits of medicines and basic health supplies to provide emergency assistance for 9,000 people for up to a month, and deployment in the city of Pemba of a second Brazilian humanitarian team with 24 military firemen from the National Public Security Forces and another 5 from the state of Minas Gerais, as I mentioned before, to replace that first team. and a solidarity campaign, public campaign, called Help Moçambique, or Ajude Moçambique in Portuguese, which was coordinated by this agency, by the Brazilian Cooperation Agency, and was conducted by the Brazilian public bank Caixa Econômica Federal, and supported by the World Food Program, which raised the equivalent of almost 100,000 North American dollars from the general public in Brazil, which financed the purchase of food, medicine, hygiene, and cleaning materials in local markets in Mozambique, not imported, but produced locally in Mozambique by the neediest population, and arrangements for the shipment with the World Food Program support, of 4,000 tons of improved rice. Dear fellows which are with us today, the majority of our nation, the majority of our people in Brazil recognize themselves as an African descent. We are proud of that. Brazilian people are deeply identified with Africa. Among us Brazilians, Africa is present in language, culture, religion, dance, among other aspects of our lives. Africa has a solid place in the Brazilian sense of nationality. Technical cooperation is therefore a privileged instrument for the consolidation of Brazil's relations with Africa. It intensifies our political, economic, social, and cultural ties and values. This is one of the reasons why cooperation with the African continent is highlighted on the Brazilian cooperation agenda. In addition, since the early 2000s, the world has witnessed an African renaissance. Africa is a rising economic pole with a great attraction of capital and rates of economic growth that are much higher than the world average. Brazil wants to contribute to this progress. We trust these positive elements will recover their strength and impact after the pandemic is over. For the Brazilian government, technical cooperation is one of the main modalities of international development cooperation and an instrument to strengthen Brazil's relations with other countries, with an emphasis on economic and social integration. It is focused on developing capacities as an effort to identify, mobilize, and improve knowledge and competences available in partner countries as a tool to achieving local autonomy to design and implement endogenous solutions to development challenges. As a pillar of technical cooperation, capacity development is a change process that takes place in four interconnected and interdependent dimensions, namely the individual, organizational, interinstitutional, and contextual capacity levels. Brazilian South-South technical cooperation is geared towards strengthening the capacities of individuals, organizations, and institutions abroad. The mainstay of this process is the sharing of knowledge, experience, and resources, which have the potential for adaptation, assimilation, and generation of positive impacts on the autonomous development of partners' countries. Brazil's cooperation with other developing countries is grounded in the principles of solidarity, horizontality, and mutual benefit, national ownership, respect for national sovereignty, and non-interference in domestic affairs. Non-profit and disconnected from commercial interests, such cooperation is demand-driven and free of impositions or conditionalities. Based on the political, technical, and methodological framework I just mentioned, and in the specific case of Africa, there is an extensive network of 32 technical cooperation agreements between Brazil and African countries, and the African Union itself, and 75 ongoing projects. Since 2000, more than 700 technical cooperation projects have been implemented in several African countries, especially in the fields of health, agriculture, livestock, fisheries, education, and vocational training. Brazil is an important and generally recognized partner of African countries in South-South technical cooperation projects carried out in the trilateral format. Brazil, plus international agency, plus beneficiary developing country, as can be seen in the following summary. Trilateral South-South cooperation projects currently being implemented in Africa in 2021. There are 12 projects with an approximate budget of $12.5 million. We work with the United Nations World Food Program, with the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, with the United Nations Children's Fund, with the United Nations Population Fund, and with the International Labour Organization in several countries, as for example, in the development of school feeding programs in 19 countries, Benin, Burundi, Ivory Coast, Ethiopia, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Malawi, Mali, Mozambique, Niger, Kenya, Rwanda, Senegal, Tanzania, Togo, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. In all these countries, we are working in the development of school feeding programs, as I mentioned. Then also in Guinea-Bissau for the Youth Leadership Project, and also in St. Thomas and Prince for the implementation of public policies for the integral protection of vulnerable families. In Ethiopia with UNICEF for basic sanitation. In Cape Verde and Senegal with the United Nations Population Fund for electronic data collection for censuses. And we have also these Beyond Cotton Regional Project with the World Food Program in Benin, in Mozambique, and we have also in Mali and also in Mozambique, we have this decent work in the Cotton Chain Regional Project with the International Labour Organization. And also in Guinea-Bissau, we are developing a security forces training center, which is a bilateral project between Brazil and Guinea-Bissau. We have also other dynamic aspect of Brazil's international technical cooperation consists of projects implemented with regional international organizations. And we have an example of that in the Latin America region or the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, and with the community of Portuguese-speaking countries, as I have already mentioned. Since the creation of the community of Portuguese-speaking countries in 1996, Brazil has been the leader in proposing and implementing cooperation actions for the socio-economic development of member countries. Brazilian cooperation has since covered a wide range of issues, among which health, water resources, higher education, and the promotion of rights of people with disabilities. In 2021, we are developing 3 regional technical cooperation projects with CPLP. The first is Network of Higher Education Public Institutions with the University of International Afro-Brazilian Lusophony Integration, the famous UNILAB. The second is the support to the management and monitoring of water resources in CPLP countries, implemented with the National Agency of Waters and Basic Sanitation of the Ministry of Regional Development of Brazil. And the third is Capoeira, Technical Professional Training and Citizenship. This initiative seeks to share technical, methodological, and theoretical knowledge about the art and practice of capoeira, which is a dance fight, as you know, with an African origin, as well as it is used as a pedagogical, artistic, and cultural resource. This is the first phase of the project was implemented in St. Thomas and Prince, and now UNILAB is together with ABC and the CPLP Executive Secretariat drafting a proposal to be developed this year and the next one with a view to extending the project to other CPLP countries. Although already finalized, the cooperation project entitled Strengthening the Political Institutional Capacity of Governmental and Non-Governmental Agents for the Promotion and Defense of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in CPLP countries, which was implemented by the National Secretariat for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities of the Ministry of Women, Family, and Human Rights of Brazil, had been successfully implemented in Guinea-Bissau and in East Timor during 2019. We are trying to have a new edition of these very important projects to this year and the next. Cooperation in health is one of the most expressive fields of activity in Brazil within the CPLP. One of the most successful initiatives is the network of human milk banks of the community of Portuguese-speaking countries, created in October 2018. This is developed with the help of the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, Frio Cruz, here in Brazil. And it will be helping to the implementation of the strategic plan for cooperation in health of the CPLP. Also supports the training of human resources in public health and the consolidation of national public health institutes in member countries. This is a very short overall view of the activities and the characteristics of the Brazilian Cooperation Agency. And I would like to summarize it by noting that Brazilian technical cooperation in Africa, considering the different modalities outlined above, comprises now 69 projects under implementation this year, 51 of which are bilateral cooperation projects and activities, with Brazil from on one side and a partner country on the other. 14 are trilateral South-South cooperation projects with developed countries, and 4 cooperation projects are being developed with the CPLP. Of these total 69 projects, almost half of it, 38 new projects, were launched into 2019 and 2020. And I'd like to stress that in the decade between 2010 and 2020, around 100 million North American dollars was allocated by Brazil to finance technical cooperation projects in the African continent. I thank you again for your presence and patience to hear this almost tiring presentation, that I excuse myself for its length, and I invite you all to move on to debate and to the exchange of ideas between us. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, and I pass the floor to Professor Monte. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my dear Ambassador Ruy Pereira. You gave so many information, so many ideas. I tried to take all the notes that you just mentioned, but I'm sure that the fellows, they received many information, not only about the projects that the Brazilian Cooperation Agency is conducting in Africa, but also, and beyond that, the possibility of emphasize the approach of Brazilian entities within Africa. I have some words that you mentioned, but I will leave the space for the fellows for the questions, and if the time allowed me, I will come back with one or two questions. So the floor it's open for the fellows. don't feel shy. Okay, Lucia, you have the word. Please raise your question.
Hi, thank you very much, Ambassador Pereira. My question is a little for the big picture, taking into account the context in which we live and the need for quick and efficient responses. What do you think are the biggest challenges, technical or political, that Brazil has in relation to international cooperation, specifically with African countries?
Muchas gracias, Lucía. Te saludo en español. And I keep going then in English. Well, let's say that we have two, from the ABC's point of view, we have two big challenges now in Africa. One is, say, in some sense political, because with all the impacts we are suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic, it's not an easy thing to keep the projects going ahead. We had to transform and adapt and adjust almost all the projects from a presential mode, which was the rule before, to a virtual mode like we are working today, now. And this poses a series of challenges in terms of rules, priorities, resources, and political, in terms of public policies mainly, achievements in each project. So this is one thing. The other is technical, because the share of health interests, public health interests, in all projects in some way is present. And so we have to make a very important adaptation work in each project to incorporate in the design and in the implementation facilities of each project this concern about the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic in the partner country and in the situation of the populations which are the targets of the projects, mainly the most vulnerable ones. So I do thank you for your question, because I think that we do have, in fact, these two sorts of main impacts today concerning our presence in terms of technical cooperation, not only in Africa. This happens also in our region here in Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you very much, Lucia.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ambassador, for your answer. Let's now come to Renee. It's your turn.
Yeah, thank you.
As I mentioned before, we work in two main modalities. We work bilaterally with the countries themselves, and we work in a more ample way with the help of international organizations. So with this novelty of this agreement you mentioned, I think that from the first point of view, that's it. That is the bilateral mode. I think that we won't have any kind of most substantive impact. On the other hand, if this new reality, which is, at least from an institutional point of view, this agreement, if it poses some new elements to consideration to international organizations in general, then perhaps we'll have some challenges, as you mentioned, and also some new realities to tackle within the multilateral cooperation of Brazil in Africa. But in any case, I do believe that an advancement in the economic, social, and institutional integration in Africa is always good news. And I think that as we are going ahead and consolidating the positive effects of this new agreement, we'll be certainly able to find new aspects or new ways to improve our cooperation in Africa also. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks again, Ambassador. Now I have Marina, please.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your lecture. It was very enriching. My question, it relates to what you mentioned about the projects being developed between Brazil and African countries within the CPLP. I was wondering if there are any other regional structures that have been catalyzers of cooperation between the two regions, and notably in the health field, because my research is in the health field. Thank you.
Well, we work normally, we have worked mainly with CPULP and the Union, the African Union itself. We have a basic technical cooperation agreement with the African Union. It's a very flexible instrument. It allows initiatives with countries member of the African Union and groups of countries member of African Union and the African Union itself. I just mentioned from the humanitarian, in terms of humanitarian cooperation that we had made last year, a very important donation to the African Union itself, to the Commission of the African Union. And they decided to send all these donations to Sudan because they thought that Sudan was one of the most affected countries by the terrible effects of the pandemic in Africa. So to answer your question very precisely, normally we work with the African Union as a whole, and mainly with the CPLP, because as you know, Brazil is one of the founders of the CPLP. We have there a very important set of common values, objectives, institutions, and a very near relationship with all members of CPLP. And so there we work very, very intensely in terms of technical cooperation. There are some other initiatives with some sub-regional, regional organizations in Africa, but they are very incipient ones, and perhaps we could employ more efforts and resources in order to develop them in the next years. Thank you very much.
All right. Once again, thank you, Ambassador, for your words. I understand as we receive the answers from the Ambassador, more clarity we can bring to our perspective about the role of ABC within the Africa context, not only for the CPLP, but also other countries, other regions within Africa where ABC has its projects. We have now the floor open for Blessing, and then we go to Pereira. Blessing, please. You are mute, Blessing. Open your microphone, please.
All right. Thank you, Ambassador, for the presentation. My questions to you are with regards to regional collaboration, particularly business-to-business collaborations. In what ways are you promoting cooperation or collaborations between Brazilian companies and African companies in terms of supply chain integration or supply chain cooperation in order to improve supply chain visibility? Because we are having problems with finding information on which companies are trading together, and also the extent of this supply chain. How can we map that supply chain in order to see the relationships or the business connections between Brazil and Africa? Thank you.
I'm sorry, Blessing, but the sound quality here was not very, very clear. Let me ask you exactly, because I didn't understand, I'm sorry. Exactly concerning which supply chain are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking in terms of businesses in Brazil, for example, in agriculture, and businesses in Africa. Maybe we have business in Africa which may be buying, say, let's say, fertilizers from Brazil or equipment from Brazil, and then we seem not to have the visibility on which companies are actually trading. I'm talking on the business side, not on the maybe multilateral agreement side. But do you do business integration of the companies themselves, let's say small companies, so that at least the visibility between Brazil and Africa becomes visible to everyone, so we can see the information, we can know the statistics of the trading partners between Brazil and Africa.
Okay, I think I understand better now, Blessing. I'd like to recall some part of my words, my previous words, when I presented the Brazilian Cooperation Agency and the technical cooperation and humanitarian cooperation Brazil does in the world. I recall that I mentioned that our technical cooperation has some characteristics which are very diverse from other initiatives in terms of technical cooperation from other countries. Normally, we don't do business related to our technical cooperation initiatives. So here in the Brazilian Cooperation Agency, we don't work with that. We believe that the high quality of the technical cooperation projects and initiatives from Brazil in the partner country, say in Africa or Latin America or the Caribbean, it is a very good mark, to say in some way, that will impress the local authorities and peoples, and certainly they will have interest to know better which should be the benefits they could obtain from the imports of from Brazilian products and services. But we do not connect the exports of Brazilian goods and services to our technical projects, mainly because the building up of a technical project with any country from the Brazilian part is a task made jointly with the partner country. And it has the purpose of identifying jointly the challenges in terms of economic and social aspects of the development process of that country at that moment. And we try to offer some results or some solutions we have already applied successfully in Brazil. And we expect that this offering can be taken by the partner country and adapted by it, to its own development process in the country. So there is no, from our point of view, there is no, and we don't run like this, a direct link between technical cooperation and exports of goods and services from Brazil.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Blessing. Thanks, Ambassador. Now I have Perihan, please.
Thank you, Professor Bosco. Thank you very much for this thorough presentation. It was very informative and interesting. Thank you for the flags that represent our countries. And I'm from Egypt. I work for an international organization, so I am very happy to hear about a little bit something related to my type of work. I have one question that is related to Egypt and Africa in general. how could you respond to the digital transformation that had to be like very quick in terms of having online programs, meeting people online and doing everything that is very different, and how it was like welcomed or not welcomed, how it was received from the different countries, and did you feel that it was a very big challenge, or it was a little bit of challenge then with the time things developed quicker and everything is becoming like online easy and people are welcoming the online things or not? Thank you.
We have these two main initiatives now, running now in Africa. One is in Senegal and the other is in Côte d'Ivoire, trying to establish a central set of technical capacities and equipment which will be able to transform Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal as regional centers for incorporating and expanding. No, they tell me that it's not Senegal, it is Cape Verde, Cabo Verde. I'm sorry. And this we are doing this with the United Nations Population Fund. And the objective is to transform these two countries in regional or sub-regional centers for expanding the ability to collect demographic data for the building up of public policies, including census in Africa. These are two structured projects that we have on the road already, trying to expand the access and utilization of digital techniques in Africa. And the partner in Brazil is the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics, which is the Brazilian public institution responsible for the national censuses in Brazil each 10 years. This is a very important experiment. We are very interested in them, and I think they will have the benefit of very good lessons for us in terms of our technical cooperation program. I did not know if I achieved to answer your curiosity. If I don't, please ask anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wanted to know if already you have finished something. So it seems that you are still working on it. So if it's current, so we do not have yet results or findings. That's what
I'm sorry. I think I didn't hear the final part of your intervention, but the first part, yes, I did hear. So I can tell you that these are ongoing projects. They were already defined, they were already established, and they are being implemented now.
Thank you.
Yes,
Welcome.
I understand your question where was answered very properly. So thanks all of you for making the questions. I know we are almost running out of time. I know Ambassador Ruy Pereira, he has other commitments. I want to close, but I'll give to you the floor for you final remarks, Ambassador. But I would like to emphasize 2 or 3 words that you mentioned. One is solidarity. Without solidarity, it's very difficult for us to achieve our goals. And I know Brazilian government, Brazilian entities, and Brazilian organizations like the Brazil Africa Institute, we are doing many things, which is not enough, but we need to work together. And I understand at the end of the day, we should bring some possibilities of changing people's life. And we are not here to change the life of Africa because we have our own problems to solve. But I understand this cooperation, this interaction, Ambassador, is very important for us to first exchange experience, but also learning from Africa. Most of the time, people think that we are able to teach, to give, but also we can receive from the African perspective. And I understand this two-way avenue is the possibility that the Brazilian cooperation agents with other organizations can develop a important strategy of South-South and triangular cooperation. And the other thing that you mentioned, Ambassador, is the vocational training that you emphasize very much, and some activities that ABC is doing in Africa, I understand it's directed to young people. And I understand, and we are trying to put this in a very emphasized perspective, is that we should bring attention, put attention to young people. So I would like to give the floor to you, Ambassador, but before I want to thank you, give my thanks to my team and your team as well to organize this important class from you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. The floor is yours for your final remarks.
Thank you very much, Professor Monti. I'll take the glove from you, and I would make some comments also. Solidarity, as you mentioned, is a general presence in our scheme of technical cooperation abroad since always, but it is more reinforced today because of the pandemic. The tragic and overall consequences, negative consequences of the pandemic in all our countries, in all of them. Brazil is one of the most affected, as we know, imposes the necessity of being or having solidarity in all initiatives we have in the international ground. So, and I didn't mention very specifically, but I think it is important to you to know, to all of you, that this solidarity with the results in terms of better standard of living for people on the ground is one of the main characteristics of the broad, profound, and very successful set of Brazilian technical cooperation initiatives that we have in terms of interfering in the development of the cotton productive chains in almost 1/3 or approximately half of the African countries. As you know, we have 54 African countries. We are present in some almost 30 of these 54 African countries in terms of technical cooperation projects in the cotton productive chain. There we have solidarity. There we have concrete results in terms of better standards of living for everybody on the ground. There we have, with the International Labour Organization, a very important aspect in all these projects, which is the decent labor standards that we try to introduce in the cotton productive chains all over the countries where we are at this moment in technical cooperation initiatives. These have very good effects also for the cooperating Brazilian institution, which is from the private sector. I would stress this, it's not a public one, it's a private sector institution. It is the Brazilian Cotton Institute, and it benefits in a technical point of view from the experiences which are made in practice there in our projects in the cotton productive chain, and profits from that in terms of better and bigger knowledge of some, for example, genetic characteristics of seeds of cotton in Africa. In fact, some of the characteristics of these projects is the establishment of genetic characteristics seed data bank concerning the varieties available or existed in Africa in terms of cotton production. This is very important for us here in Brazil. Concerning the second word you mentioned, Professor, training, I would stress that we in Brazil, we prefer the word capacities. Capacities is not training, is more than that, much more than that. And so what we intend with our technical cooperation projects and programs is amplifying the autonomous, endogenous capacities in individual, institutional, interinstitutional levels in the partner country. And these benefits directly, as you mentioned, and this is your assertive is quite right, the young people in all our societies. And I have here the opportunity to present to you very briefly some examples of projects, for example, Capoeira, the Capoeira initiative in terms of cultural and citizenship in some African countries, where we are building up capacities of young people to be cultural actors, but also to be citizenship actors in their country. So I would say so. And I do thank you very much. I do thank you very much for this opportunity. There in that Capoeira project, I was remembered here, we have another private sector institution as the Brazilian participant, which is the SENAI. As you know, it is maintained by the industrial sector in Brazil. And so I think that I had the opportunity, I do thank you very much for this, Professor Monte, to offer you a very broad idea of what we are, what we do, and how we function here in the Brazilian Cooperation Agency. Thank you very much for your attention and patience.